Before this gets started, I just wanted to make a correction that this is episode 193 of Fresh Air at 5. So, replace all episode 192 with episode 193. Hi there. Welcome to episode 192 of Fresh Air at 5. This episode is called, Have You Got the Tools? Well, tools. Talking about technology tools. Talking about tools to get jobs done and relationships that aren't tools. They're not tools, but having the right items and things in place to help you get through so that you can be successful. All right, this afternoon, as I'm going to be publishing this soon, a friend of mine is coming over to talk about a tool. It's Joanne Friesen, educator at Abbotsford Christian School, and she's a faithful listener. And her and I are going to sit down and work on Adobe Express so that she can learn how to use this tool more effectively. All right, so it's about the tools. All right, have a fabulous day. And without further ado, here we go. Episode 192, Fresh Air at 5.
I'm Anne, co-host of Transparency in Teaching, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. I'm your host, Brian Carpenter, coming to you every week from Abbotsford, which is about 45 minutes east of Vancouver, British Columbia, on the west coast of Canada. Fresh Air at 5 is my regular attempt to get some fresh air by walking about my neighborhood, which is located on the traditional and unceded territory of the Stolo people, the Simath First Nation and Mathwee First Nation. I consume podcast content while I walk, then reflect on this content in an unedited video, which I post on my X, formerly known as Twitter, channel every day. This podcast is the collection of the audio taken from those daily selfie videos over the course of a week, Monday to Friday. So let's jump into my listening and learning this past week. Hey PLN, it's November 18, 2024, and it's Fresh Air at 5 later in the evening because this morning I stayed in bed. But I'm listening to podcasts now, and I'm learning some stuff. I just listened to Season 4, Episode 14 of Seem to Lead podcast with Chris Jones as he brings us an interview that he has with Eric Bowles about educational effectiveness. And Eric Bowles is currently the Vice President of Research and District Engagement for the Center of Educational Effectiveness. Now, we're talking about educational effectiveness, and what do we mean by growing and making a difference to grow students? Eric brings to the fore in this episode not the fact that kids are academically strong or all those things that we can measure with standardized tests and things like that, but more the fact that students have a sense of enjoying going to school. They have a group of friends that they go through school with, that they identify with. They have a caring adult in the school system that they believe cares about them, and a sense of voice and agency that they can do things. Those are like competencies. Those are like the core competencies about communication and the 4 C's. And those things are so very important because without those things, it's difficult to learn other things. And I appreciate hearing that, Eric. It's about growing kids in a culture that starts way before they get to us in education. The culture around a student growing up in the formative years of, from prenatal to till the time they get to kindergarten at age 5, so important. And then we get them in school, and we're supposed to fix things, and not necessarily fix, but to work with what's been brought. And if we could have a culture before we get there that is, about these things in their life, that would make a big difference. All right, there's way more here than what I said. Take a listen for yourself. Thank you so much, Eric and Chris. Take care. Bye. Hey, PLN. It is November 20, 2024. Here we are, midweek, Wednesday, and what's going on weather-wise? We've got a thing called a cyclone bomb that has hit Vancouver Island and the coast of the west coast here, British Columbia, and it's air that comes down from Alaska, curls around, and then it's a spinning cyclone, kind of really high winds, not a hurricane, but something different. And we were bracing for that yesterday. I noticed some higher winds last evening, and this morning I was waking up going, I'm going to get out for my walk because of the wind. Well, we're doing okay right now. So here I am out walking, getting some fresh air, moving my legs because I need to do more of that. This is Fresh Air at 5 and walking is key, but I have been not as actively engaged in that and just choosing to listen to podcasts, sit at home because the weather's crummy. So every effort I can to do better. Okay. This morning I listened to episode 102 of the Two Principles podcast with Kevin Jost and Jason Paris as they bring us cultivating positivity in schools. Now, I knew this was going to be a gooder. It's always a gooder because they talk about good things on the 2P podcast. You should take a listen and subscribe. But today they're talking about how do we raise the frequency in our schools and consider a positive environment as a better place to be than a negative environment. And I can say that we've had some ups and downs recently at my school, and we're, I think, on the positive trajectory, doing some things together as staff and getting through it and having a better experience. This past Monday, we had staff luncheon, so we've organized a couple staff every month, cook lunch for most of the staff, and we all come to that. Okay, hang on, I'll be right back. Got more to say, hang on. One more thing for November 20, 2024. Continuing my thoughts on the 2P podcast, episode 102, Cultivating Positivity in Schools, with Jason Paris and Kevin Jost. They bring us, this episode. I was talking about staff luncheons at my school and how we have a monthly and a luncheon where one staff member brings the main course dish and another brings a supporting dish like a salad or dessert or something like that. And we take turns. And yeah, cause, it comes out of our pocket. But the point is, we have a small staff. There's about 20 of us that are in the building on a regular basis. So we can do this in our small scale. You could do this in your departments. You could do this, between two departments to build relationships. But then all the other departments get jealous. So I don't know. And maybe that's not good at a big school, but it's a way to build community. I like what you guys say about strategies for building positivity as a leader. I am not a principal or a vice principal. I am department head, and I'm a leader in my building in that manner. So, I talk about academics, but I also talk about relationships. It's super important. If I can go into my classroom happy and healthy because I've got the support of staff around me, that makes a difference when tough stuff happens. So, good stuff to listen to. I hope you guys are getting through the slump of the time change. And as Thanksgiving, U.S. Thanksgiving is coming, that you got some joy. Looking forward to your weekend with your family and the activities that go with that. We're here. We've got, I think, 5 weeks of 5 days. So all our long weekends of Pro D are gone now, which is a good thing. We can get back to normal programming as you would. But we've built relationships with our students, and we're making some progress. All right, gents, have a fabulous one. I got more to say coming up, so don't go away. Okay, bye. the last thing for November 2024. All right, so what else is going on here? I'm not talking about another podcast right now, but I'm just going to give you an update about things that are going on with me in my life and my school and the communities that I'm involved in. School's coming along, and I'm enjoying working with my middle school students and secondaries as we learn more about Adobe Express. That's my jam right now, and the video editor in there and the things that you can do with timing, layers, and animations, fantastic. So that's what's going on. I really am digging that. And where am I using that? I'm using that in my work that I do as a board member on my daughter's choir. We've got a concert coming up, and I'm supporting our choir by helping with the graphics that are on the screen during our concert. You know, we've got multimedia stuff that can happen. We've got slides with images that support the message of the song. The choir is singing. My daughter's been singing in this choir for 9 years, and it's really fun to be able to participate in my creative way in a thing where I can't sing. I don't sing. I can sing, but not very well. I can't sing like them, the kids and the youth, but I can participate and support with my creativity in the way of multimedia and graphics and sound and things like that. So that's going on. That's a lot of fun. Other ways, I'm the vice president of our middle school teachers association here in British Columbia through the BCTF, and that has been a joy for the past 3 years that I just stepped into the vice presidentship of that. It's an opportunity to provide some support and leadership for our president, our other executive members, and I'm happy to be engaged in this community as well. Go Great White Sharks. All right. What else is happening? Oh, been out fishing. I've been doing that, so that's been fun. Taking my boat out on the Fraser River, trying to catch some sturgeon this past weekend, but we got caught in a rainstorm instead. No fish to the boat, but we've had a good time previously. All right, that's what's going on with Carpenter. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you. Talk to you soon. Bye. Okay, another last thing. That's not the last thing, but this is the real last thing right now. And it is because I listened to a short 7-minute, inspiring, challenging podcast by Suzanne Daly, the Teach Happier podcast. It's one of my regulars, as you know, from listening to me talk about teaching happier and what's involved in teaching happier. I listened to this, and the title is, What's Your Response? And I'm like, oh, okay, so what do? How do you respond to a situation? She talks about an author that she listened to. Can't remember her name. Kate Murphy, maybe. She wrote a book about you're not listening, and Suzanne heard her at a conference in New Orleans. So yes, New Orleans is fun. I've only been there one time, Suzanne, and that was many, many, many years ago. I didn't have a beignet. I had other things, but not a beignet. Okay, so this thing that Kate Murphy, I think her name's Kate Murphy, I'm going to call her that, she talks about is what's your response and how do you respond when someone says something. There is the shift response, and then there is the support response. And I have done this, and Suzanne, I cringe when you said this because you said I would, but it's because it's actually true. And 90% of our responses are shift responses compared to support responses. The one that says, hey, I'm going on a cruise this weekend, and I'm looking forward to that, and you come back with, I was on a cruise last week, and you turn the tables and shift the attention from the person that's speaking back to yourself and take away their wind in their sail, but you're blowing wind into your own sail. All right, so that's that one. And then the support response would be, hey, that sounds great. I'm really excited for you, and I hope you get some rest while you're there. And turning it around so that you're not talking about you, but you're supporting the other person. This works with negative things too, like I've got a challenging situation with a parent that I'm dealing with, and you come back with, oh yeah, that happened to me. This other student's parent did this and that, and you're talking about yourself, and you didn't even help that other teacher with what's going on with them. All right, take a listen. Episode, 11, season 5, Teach Happier. Okay, bye. Hey, PLN, it's November 21, 2024. Good morning to you, out for a quick walk this morning for fresh air at 5, breathing some fresh air in because it's so important to do so every day, moving my body. As I'm walking this morning, I listened to episode 197. Congratulations to you, Shanna, for episode 197 of Tech Tools for Teachers, as you bring us a piece of tech each week that we can try in our classrooms. And this week is perplexity.ai. And you talk about Perplexity and the kind of search results you get out of Perplexity, which is an artificial intelligence tool that is got references provided as you do your searches. Free Perplexity gives you 3 searches a day. But if you do that and leverage that in your classroom with your class, you could get a lot of searches done every day with your students. I haven't used Perplexity myself, but it's been on my radar to try as one of those AI tools that could be useful in a classroom. All right, so thank you, Shanna. Thank you, Fuzz. And it was very perplexing to hear you talk about Perplexity. No, it wasn't perplexing. It's very clear. All right, that's all I got for right now. Coming back at you in just a second. One more thing for November 21, 2024. Okay, I listened to someone I haven't heard from in a while on their podcast, and it is Brian Martin of the Teaching Champions podcast. And Brian, I appreciate hearing from you, and I was wondering what was going on, but obviously not enough because I didn't reach out and say, hey, Brian, what's going on? Haven't heard from you in 4 months on your Teaching Champions podcast. Because we all have full lives, right? Very full. But that's my apology for not checking in. But anyhow, you apologize for not being out on the airwaves because you've been doing some other stuff that has occupied your time. Life was full and life was rich, and we need to make sure that we use our time the best that we can, and sometimes things have to be put on the back burner. Teaching Champions, great to hear from you. You had a message about how to increase your positivity and stay positive and stay focused. And you also tell us about a new podcast that you have started, which is great, that I'm going to now put into my queue and take a listen to and share with my athletic director friend. All right. In this episode of Teaching Champions, I didn't catch the episode number, but you talked to us about 3 ways to increase your positivity. One is self-awareness. Being aware of yourself, and that means being aware of what you do and do not do well so that you can understand yourself, and it's a lot deeper than just knowing about yourself, but being aware of yourself. The second is control the controllables. What can you control in your space, and what can you not control in your space, and don't focus on those things that you can't control because, they're outside of our control. All right, this comes from a lot of work that you're doing on sports psychology. And that's pretty good. And the third thing you talked about, you have self-awareness, control the controllables, and you know what? It escaped me because I didn't. I just listened to it and I forgot. Oh my goodness. Anyhow, it's there. Take a listen to Brian Martin's recent episode on Teaching Champions for the whole list of 3. I just bring you 2 of the 3 here. Thanks, Brian. Bye. One more thing for November 21, 2024. Just walking past what is going to be one of my best friend's new houses. They're moving into my neighborhood. You know that feeling when you're young, when your best friend moves out of your neighborhood? Well, this is the opposite. My best friend's moving into my neighborhood, which I'm super excited about. Yes, they're on my walking route, so that's pretty fantastic. All right, I'm going to bring you a new to me podcast from someone that I respect in the podcast world, and that's Brian Martin of the Teaching Champions podcast. And Brian, I just mentioned him in the last segment there. He has started a new podcast. He has worked on his being a athletic mental coach and his developing of understanding there and being a certified mental coach for athletics. And he's working with some local teams to develop his ability to support them. All right, in doing so, he has started a new podcast. But right now, I got to say hey to Bruce and Sophie because they're just walking by. Hang on. All right, and there's Bruce and Zoe, or Sophie.
Yeah.
Yes. And so say bye, Sophie. Bye-bye, girl. All right, see you later,
See you
buddy.
later.
Okay, bye. All right, and so Brian talks to us about, oh, is this upside down? Maybe it's upside down. All right, he talks to us about motivation and mental wellness and leveling up our game for athletes. So this is a quick, short snippet, like about 3 minutes long, of inspiration. And today's topic on episode 7 of The X Factor, Leveling Up Your Mental Game with Brian Martin, is about how do we handle success. And he brought to us an idea that came from the Indiana Hoosiers coach, Sangaree, I think his name is, and he talked about, you know, when we become successful and we rise up, we need to stick to our routines and stick to the basics so that we don't get distracted by all the noise and the hype that goes along with success. So that's the same for us as educators. We need to keep focused on what we're doing and do it well, even if we become successful. Thanks, Brian. Take a listen to X Factor, Leveling Up Your Mental Game with Brian Martin. The last thing for November 21, 2024. Yes, I kind of cheated this morning and didn't walk super far. I'll be putting on about 2 kilometers this morning as I did a walk by of my friend's new house that they just put an offer in and got accepted last night. You know, so I listened to my podcast at home and I got out to do my recording on the street, and I'm fessing up. This is Carpenter fessing up of one of the little tricks maybe that I've used once or twice in the past, but not many. So yes, my walks typically are authentic, but today's is a short, kind of unauthentic walk. But yes, I'm outside getting some fresh air. All right, last night I was privileged to be a guest on the Kindsight 101 podcast with Morgan Michael, and we connected recently this past summer, and finally got to sit down and have a conversation about my podcast and my journey and my lifelong learning and creativity and artificial intelligence in the mix of that, and how do I go about doing what I do. So it was great to talk with Morgan, and this is a shout out to the Kindsight 101 podcast. No episode to talk about yet for this one today for this recording, but I wanted to say that come late December, maybe in January sometime, you'll get to hear me talk with Morgan on Kindsight 101. Go subscribe to Kindsight 101 and you know, give her some props because she's doing some great stuff and has some fantastic guests on. And then guys like me. You know, I'm a good guest, but I'm not like one of the big rock stars, but maybe one day. So thank you, Morgan. I appreciate it. And with that, I'm going to wrap up today's reflection on Fresh Air at 5. This is episode 192 coming out this Friday. Okay, bye. Hey, PLN, it's Friday, November 22, 2024, just a little later in the day, as this morning I completely slept through it. My alarms didn't even go off, and I was awake just before it was time to go to school this morning. So, yeah, later today, I'm wearing a different toque even that one of my students gave me. He used to work there, so that's super fun. And, yeah, talking about using the right tool, as I heard on Seeing to Lead, Season 4, Episode 15 with Craig Shapiro and Chris Jones. So we're talking about using the right tool, and I'm in my garage right now and talking about tools, right? And so they were talking about using the right tool and how it's so important that we use the right kind of tool to get the job done. I'm actually putting the Rain-X, this is a rain water repellent, on my window of my vehicle, and listen to the podcast. And it's important that we have the right tools. You know, so what I got to do now with this is I clean the window with Windex. I washed it again with water and dried it. Then I applied the Rain-X. And now the next thing is to get the Rain-X to be buffed into the window so that it's an invisible layer on my window for water repelling and beading. I think NASCARs use this and things like that. So what tool do I need to use? I got to get microfiber cloths, and I did. I got some of those. But what would probably be an easier tool to use would be a buffing wheel, and I couldn't find that. we've got goals. I want to get this done. I don't want it to take forever, but having the right tool would make the job easier. So I got to do some harder work with a microfiber cloth to get this off. But if I had a buffing wheel, which I couldn't find last night when I went to the store, it would probably make the job a lot easier. All right, knowing your goal, what are you trying to accomplish? And then using the most efficient means possible to get to that goal would probably help. Not necessarily the efficiency, but the best tool in the toolkit to do so. Quality tools make a difference over less quality tools. We know that, We have our tools such as Black & Decker compared to those of like Milwaukee and Makita. The industrial tools are made better and stronger to last longer than the hobby tools that we would have typically in our garages. All right, that's all. I've gone over time. And with that, have a great weekend. We'll see you soon. Thanks, Craig. Thanks, Chris. Talk to you. Bye. All right, the last thing for November 22, 2024. All right, we're still talking about tools, and this is Tech Tools for Teachers, episode 195. Neighbor's dog is barking out here. I'm going inside. And Shannon Martin and Fuzz Martin, they bring us a couple of tools in episode 195, which is two before, I think 197, that I listened to earlier this week. So this is a new episode that I missed hearing, and they're talking about drawing tools and like for digital art that use some digital art techniques. One of them is AutoDraw by Google. It's a Google experiment, and how it uses AI to help clean up the drawings and make things more, as expected and what you're hoping for possibly, but knowing that that's really important. And the other is called Kleki, Kleki, and it is a drawing tool that's a digital drawing tool. You don't have to sign into it. You have to save your work. There's no auto-save, no cloud storage, but there's brushes, there's backgrounds, there's all kinds of stuff. And it's a good way, as Shanna says, to introduce digital drawing to younger students. All right, there's my friend's dog that just ran in the background there. And so take a listen to this episode. Go try these tools out for yourself. And Shanna, I want to say thank you so much for presenting at my PETA. I have yet to, find the recording from your session, and I'm so sorry that I had to miss your session as I was in the theater, actually in Canada, doing a hybrid session, streaming it out during the time that you were presenting. All right, we'll talk to you later. Have a happy Friday, and this is the last segment for episode 192 of Fresh Air at 5. Bye. I appreciate you giving me a listen as I've created this podcast experience for you. It's like a unique Blinkist or Coles Notes version of the content I take in, like a highlight reel, so that you can hopefully find some other interesting podcasts you may not have considered before. I've recorded the specific episode podcast titles and episode numbers in the show notes, which are only a click or swipe away for your learning convenience. I've also started to put together a Spotify playlist of each of the episodes so that you can also take a listen to those specifically, and the link to that playlist is in the show notes. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming episodes. And if you enjoyed this podcast and its format, share it with someone else. You can also follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Brian Carr, BRYONCAR, or at Fresh Air at 5. Tweet about your experience or give it a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. Fresh Air at 5 can be found on the Educational Podcast Network. Podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. I hope you have a fantastic day. Get some fresh air before the day is out and take care of yourself because you are worth it.